Welcome back to another Georgia Fintech Academy podcast. We have been hyper focused on making sure that we're bringing some of the most interesting emerging topics and trends in the industry to the forefront of the conversation. And so, as you guys are mostly familiar with, we have an industry professional as well as a student from within the Georgia Fintech Academy community as part of our conversation today. And the topic is AI. AI is such an interesting one, but when we're talking about AI and payments, it's become a hot topic across the industry. I know personally, I've been in so many different conferences and webinars and newsletter distributions where that theme seems to be at the forefront of everyone's minds, whether it's you're fearing for your future opportunities from a career perspective, or you're just afraid of what adoption of these new technology capabilities mean. I think for me personally, I'm excited about what AI, and we're talking about AI broadly from the ChatGPT large language model format to AI that's being leveraged for fraud and predictive analytics, de-risking customer experiences left and right. So there's a lot going on. And I think today we're going to have a really cool conversation here with Christian and with Nikhil. And I'll start off with Christian. Christian and I go, I don't want to say way back, but we go back. We're both based at Georgia State. And Christian, can you just introduce yourself quickly for our audience?
Of course. Thanks, Ms. Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Christian. I am a fourth-year computer information systems student here at Georgia State University. I founded the Fintech organization here at Georgia State, where we help students bridge the gap between technology and finance. And I'm very passionate about this subject. We work closely with the Georgia Fintech Academy. So kind of like Miss Laura said, me and her don't go way back, but we've been getting closer as we've been collaborating on more initiatives together. So nice to meet y'all.
Christian, just a real quick question. Do you know how many students approximately are engaged with you guys from a student organization perspective?
Yeah, so we have about 200 on pins, but from meeting to meeting, we'll usually get around 30 members. So I'd say around that area of engaged members that are really coming out and attending events.
No, it's cool to see you guys grow and host sessions virtually and in person. And I know, personally, it's always hard to get something off the ground and get it up and running. But you guys have done a really great job at doing that. And the fact that you've at least reached 200 in your network of students who can participate is extreme growth. I think it's only been about a year, right, since the organization was stood up. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's great. Great track record. And then we're
Doing our-
going to go to Nikhil. I really appreciate you. You've been in my network, and I love the fact that your volunteerism is at the forefront of everything that you do. I see, your activity online and you volunteering to support the FinTech Academy. Really nice to have you here today. But I know Christian's going to actually ask you some questions, so I guess I'll avoid asking you to introduce yourself. But Christian is going to be co-hosting today, so really excited about the conversation. I'll hand it over to Christian to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Perfect. Nice to meet you, Nikhil. So before we dive
It's
in,
not
start with just a quick icebreaker and ask you what sparked your interest in the fintech industry.
I think that's a great question. Definitely, like always, there will be a spark somewhere in most of the things that we try to do. For me, I think my journey into fintech was not exactly planned, but looking back, I guess you could say I was unknowingly set on this path early on. My mom worked at a bank in India, so like for almost like 40 years. So I was always surrounded by conversations about loans or like interest rates, account balances, the direct cash. Now that we have the payments or like everything like credit card or everything like that, back then it was all coins. Like literally, you have to deal with the cash, the physical cash. So I always surrounded about around that. Though at the time I was like a kid, also like more interested in playing outside or just getting out, doing some things, not really understanding about how this all these things work. But it's just like I feel like more of thing like come on a full circle that when I got into software engineering, even I was not really interested in the fintech initially. I just want to get a job, definitely, right? After you finish your education, you try to get a job. You don't try to do something really like a stream at that point. But on the fly, or like also gradually down the line, I got into fintech, starting at working at United States Department of Agriculture. That was my first more of like fintech related project. That was back like 10 years ago, and where we worked on some loans for the federal kind of departments. So that was an interesting project where I worked on some migrating some tech stack to a newer tech stack. So that is where gradually, fortunately, I've been into fintech from there all these 10 years, and I'm really loving it.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah, I definitely can relate to knowing that like I did not know what fintech was at first. Like even using stuff such as like Apple Pay on a day-to-day basis, not something that spawned from fintech innovation. So I
Yeah,
definitely
like let me tell you, so though this Apple Pay and everything existed since long, I just started using that like since 3 years. That's it. I mean, like even now, probably I don't carry my wallet now, just since a year. But before that, I used to carry my wallet. I used to carry my phone. Though I have the Apple Pay and everything, I still take my wallet.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes it takes time to transition into these newer things. Yeah.
definitely.
No, that's so cool. I love to hear that your mother has a history working in
Yeah.
financial
So
services.
let me tell you, like my wife works for US Bank.
Okay.
My wife's mother works for a bank in India. So it's like I don't know, like the closer people everyone is into the banking or something like that.
That's cool.
Perfect. Nikhil, I did also have a follow-up question. For the students that do not know, because this is a question we always get at student engagement fairs, even certain members, and sometimes I hear various answers, but I wanted to hear from you what your definition of fintech was for someone that is new to the space.
So I would say like fintech is more about it's not like definitely more just like technology. So fintech is more about the business. How do you have to run a business? Was the first point. So you have to understand the business perspective first, so that is where you know what solution you're trying to bring up for that specific business problem, or like it can be like a societal problem as well, but most of the time it revolves around business for the people. So first thing is to get the business, try to understand what kind of financial thing you are trying to solve. It can be the payments, or it can be loans, or it can be insurance, or it can be like a student loan again, like under loan. There are different kinds of things. So each one has its own perspectives. You have to understand what is the problem behind that solution that you're working on. Then you get to know like what kind of technology or what kind of route you have to choose to get this problem like resolved and get into the market so that people can use it and people can like it.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Yeah, I like
Christian, just to highlight real quick, the key word that you used was like problem and problem solving, and I feel like that's like essential for folks across the industry. And I know that personally for me resonates because that's why I wanted to get into the industry. Solving problems and creating new innovative technologies was exciting, and so I love to hear that you highlighted that, Nikhil. Christian, I'll turn it back to you.
thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna add on to Nikhil's point. What we like to tell students who ask us is that it's sort of like the technology that backs these financial institutions as well. I like your answer a lot. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the recent AI summit that's still happening in France. So a lot of things that are happening there, like about AI and about like the payment systems and all these things as well. One thing is like some of the countries have like a centralized payment kind of thing, like where you can just scan and just make a payment. But here we do have in United States, we do mostly focus on credit cards. And I think how the business model works here, right? So the business model here, like people expect or like got used to more about like cashback and rewards rather than the simplicity or ease of getting to it. So they try to get like, hey, when you're spending some money, we got used to like what is a cashback. I mean, I do that. I mean, like I have like a list of cards. I see like, okay, if I'm going to a restaurant, okay, I have to use this. If I'm going to like a movie theater, I have to use this. If I'm going to groceries, I have to use this. So there's more about like the business use cases, how you have to come up with and see what you have to do to solve.
Definitely, definitely. I like was just looking at my Discover card because they have 5% cash back at restaurants.
Yeah, I do that. Like I do that every quarter. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I always wonder because I'm like, how do people keep up if it's switching every quarter? Like, I need an app with a reminder that says spend it at this place now.
Right, right. It's good when you only have just a few credit cards. Definitely. Just to continue on and expand on your career journey, I wanted to ask, what's been the most exciting project you've worked on?
So the most exciting, I would say like that's a really tough question. Out of 10 years, like there are many challenging projects where I failed. where I was successful as well. Failure doesn't mean that it's not exciting. It can be still exciting, but it excites you in a different way because you might be trying a bigger problem to solve a bigger problem. So one thing I could pick is like working on like a real-time financial rewards and automation system was definitely one of the most exciting ones that I've worked with my previous company when I was with social finance. And here the idea was just simple in theory. Like it's more about like creating a like a seamless like real-time financial rewards platform that integrates across different financial products. So when I say like financial products, Sofa has like different products. It can be like credit cards, loans, banking, invest, and there's like a lot more products under loans. So whenever a user does something, they get rewards back based on the action they take. But as part of my application or like as part of the project that I have to deal with, I have to gather all these things as a centralized way and make sure that each transaction is getting rewards in a timely manner and it's not really missing anything. That was like to handle it like it's more about like to build a single platform that could process millions of transactions instantly and also analyze those user behavior or like how to get those personalized rewards more dynamically. That is more likely a bigger project because you have to deal with like multiple products across the company. It's not just like one product like a siloed thing, so you have to work across multiple products. So to get that done in a more feasible way, it was very helpful. And also it was like there were like massive records that you have to save in the database. There are massive data that you have to analyze. There is a massive because you have to take care about the compliance and also like the auditing, how it has to work. So there's a lot more things behind it. But I would say like that is one of the complex and interesting project because I had to deal with every other product. So I had got to know like how at least not like in the deeper level, but at least on the high level, I got to understand how each financial product really works and what is something behind the company, how it actually works.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know personally speaking, related to what you just highlighted, when you get your hands in complex projects like that, that touch so many different pieces on front end and back end, you have to think about, downstream implications to, letters and statements and communications to the customer, things that are behind the scenes that aren't necessarily at the forefront or obvious. And we try at the FinTech Academy to kind of show students or share with students that this one, technology solution has so many different tenets and there's so many different factors. There's legal risk and compliance as well on top of all of that. And there's a lot of different pieces that have to come together to make things work, which you just nicely highlighted.
And like too many things are involved. Like you have to also show like in a very user friendly way. It's more about even when like nowadays, I mean, like if you want to click on something or if you want to do something, the first thing is to you have to like how the UI looks first, like the overall interface looks.
Gotcha. Thank you for that answer. So as we transition into the future of AI and payments, I had a question for you, which is what are some of the coolest innovations happening right now in that space?
I think I would say there are a lot more things that are existing that can get better. Like some coolest things I could still mention are like tap to pay everywhere. So we still have it, but it's more about like the payment terminals or like smartphones or something like that. I think we can also get better like using more hands off as hands off as possible. Even it is a phone, we have this face hand scan payments as well. Like it's almost like familiar like in some other countries, and like they have been in use for like a bit more. But now I think Amazon has been doing that at Whole Foods, the hand scan payments. But apart from that, I also wanted to see like more about like facial payments as well. Like I think China is doing it as of now, but it's more about like security too. So it's not easy to do. It's just that you can have a lot of things in imagination that you can also say just like if it runs in your mind, you can just make, you also want that payment should happen. So there are a lot more things that can happen if you really imagine, but it's more about the security perspective that is more important as well. That is where again like we also can have blockchain involved, so it's more secure for us. So and like you have something to try as a like a new phase, you can also include blockchain in it. So that is one thing. Blockchain solutions, I think that is something I can think of that can be like a very bigger thing in the future. And also a bit related to how the quantum computing also can help along with the blockchain. These three things along with AI, obviously. So, and another thing I can think is like just like to just have like central bank currencies, like I would say like central bank, it's more governments, I think like worldwide can do like a central currency. So these are about like how we can think to make the payments or industries get better so that the fraud is less and it is more secure. Let's say if I'm getting into a car or like an Uber, or if I'm getting into a restaurant, I can just eat or I can just drive in the car and I can just go out. That's it. And the payment should happen. I don't really need to worry about it. It's more about like invisible payments. That is something I want. But it's more because it feels nicer that you don't need to really take care of small things, but it's more about security again. So there are a lot more things that has to come along with that.
We were talking earlier about Discover Card and like knowing which transaction should go on which card to reap the most benefit out of the rewards program. But if there's some intelligence around that, I could see that being an awesome thing to have, but then also scary because fraud, but human beings make there's errors. I know for myself, I have to remind my husband all the time to look at our receipt before we pay after dinner sometimes because you never know when there's an extra glass of wine or an extra entree that yeah, there always will have to be some sort of review, but I love taking kind of like the pain out of the transaction that you have for one night of outing and you just highlight like 4 different times you have to enjoy your night out, you know?
I like the biometric payments that I really wanted to happen in the future because it's still more about like you still have this like you are able to unlock your phone with your hand or unlock your laptops with your thumb or unlock your cars with your thumb or a finger. So even like I would like to see like the payments can also happen, but definitely needs more security as said, but I really would love to see that more grown up or like more adaptable thing in the future for me in the United States. I really love that. I mean, I'm hoping for it.
You know, one thing that's interesting as you mentioned that, and Christian, I'm interested to see if you have a different perspective, but I know a lot of people are concerned around privacy. So to have some of these technologies, including biometrics, requires, an archiving of your biometric data to be able to identify and connect and know your customer. But I'm always interested in consumer perspectives on privacy. How much privacy are you willing to give up, or how much of your personal information are you willing to give up to be able to leverage some of these cool, innovative technologies?
That's right. And also like higher end cyber security is required here because I mean, like there are a lot of attacks that keep happening even on the government systems. So once you get hold of all these things, if some people have like more of like your fingerprints or like biometrics, they can try to do anything.
Christian, do you have a perspective on students and like the next generation, like their appetite for these cutting edge technologies?
Yeah, I definitely think that our generation growing up in the digital age and having a lot of peers that have social media platforms that are public, a lot, I feel like of us feel as though if privacy isn't the forefront, isn't something that we are as concerned about. Personally, I am a little bit more reserved when it comes to that, but when it comes to something such as a fintech innovation where we can have even larger contactless payments where it's biometric to another level where we can, like Nikhil was saying, walk out of the restaurant without even having to pay, and then it also knows which credit card to use as well. I'd be game for that. That would be something that definitely interests me.
I've heard, but I've never experienced this. But like I've seen people saying like if you have credit cards in your pocket and when you're just walking, someone can have a device which can definitely scan your card numbers. Like when they walk, I mean like around you, and they can get all your details. I mean that sounds crazy for me, but I've never experienced it or someone I have never been into such attacks. Like someone even when I have my card, someone using it, or like even when I don't have my card details on some websites in a saved mode. So I've checked a couple of times, like, but I've never seen like any transactions, at least for me. But I'm not really sure if you or like any students that have come up something like this, like have faced like an issue, something like that.
Christian, I'll let you answer too, but I know it's called RFID. I personally have purchased, especially for international travel, an RFID protector. So it's like a sleeve that you could put cards in. As these new technology solutions are created, fraud and malicious users out there are just as equally creative. People can just scan right next to your pocket or bump up to you in the subway. There's just so many different ways for people to gain access to that data.
That's right. So we try to build systems and other people try to break systems. We have our own interests, they have their own interests. So we have to be secure, like when we are trying to build as much as possible.
Right. And to add on to your point, thankfully I haven't had that happen to me either, where someone has tapped up against my wallet. But I heard it's called like skimming or skimmers, like tap skimmers, where people can come up to your wallet. And I've seen like TikToks about it, which made me like very hesitant to bring out my wallet sometimes. Which actually is all the more reason to have this innovation in the fintech space, where we see as we shift toward less physical and we use contactless payments like Apple Pay. So
Yeah, that's right. I mean, now we are in a generation that people show how to make a fraud and they do it. It's
Yeah.
not like they hide somewhere and they do it. They show it how to do and they do it.
So we can move to the next question that I have. And it'll still be along the lines of the future of AI and payments, but this is going to go toward more of AI and financial services. So the question is, what should companies do to use AI responsibly?
Ethical AI has been a topic of conversation for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's right.
Working for a company that specialized in fraud risk management, the explainability of how you're deriving these models and applying these risk scores by analyzing certain behaviors. And so there's been so many advancements in that space. But now as the conversation around AI becomes much more broad, it's funny thinking about what you just said applied to so many different aspects of how AI is being utilized. And I think there's a whole new segment of roles out in the industry for folks that can play kind of bridging the gap between technology and business product to be able to maturely kind of govern and enhance those governance processes. And I know for me, like every single product, we had to bring it through like a risk legal compliance review. But now it's kind of flipping it where it has to be at the beginning of the process versus like a downstream tail end, a check the box.
That's true. That's true. Because one reason is I see a lot of articles or like a lot of people still saying that they're having issues like with the automatic loan approvals or like loan rejections. Some companies use like AI to decide like if a person can get a loan based on their credit score or like what all the criteria they look for. Definitely, like even if it is not AI, any system can make mistakes. It can't be 100% right all the time, but most of the companies try to keep it at least 99% right. So sometimes when these like new technologies evolve, even if it is it's a normal thing that mistakes can happen, people try to come out saying that this is all because happening because people are using or the companies are using new technology. But it's both ways. It has to be done in both ways. We companies have to be more responsible in how they are doing it. Like instead of doing also like not really be more biased. So bias mitigation needs to be there, and also like a lot of human oversight is also required. And I really like the ethical AI side of thing, and I'm also learning a course now, like where it is more about like ethical AI and governance. It's not that I just want to do like a career switch to something else, but it's more about as I keep using AI, I wanted to know what are the things that I need to know as part of ethical side or like governance side, so that I can just be more mindful when I'm trying to do something.
I see a future where, Nicole, to that point, every enterprise company or organization is now offering that to their employees. Because to your point, we all have to now be aware if you're leveraging the technology in any instance, even if it's not like customer facing or a
Right.
customer decisioning, impact, just using the technology yourself, you have to be informed and equipped, just like you would on cybersecurity and other things that could harm you as an individual, not only as an employee of a company.
Definitely. Thank you both for your insights. And as we're kind of shifting over to ethical AI, and all around that topic, I wanted to talk about fighting fraud with AI. So this question can actually be for both of you, given your experiences. How does AI help detect and prevent fraud in financial transactions?
I'd say like AI is definitely one of the most, I'd say like powerful tools in the fight against fraud. It's just not that financial things, but it's everywhere. What can happen in any systems where the data exists. So it can be telecom, it can be healthcare, or it can be any system. But coming to financial, it's more about like AI can really analyze huge amounts of data in real time and detect these fraud or anomalies between how the transactions are happening. So that is one thing because it all depends on how you train the model. It's not that like if I want to use AI and I feel that this can detect something, it doesn't work that way. You have to fine tune it well and you have to make sure your model is very well designed and also fine tuned. Only then it does a lot better job. So some things that need to be considered is, or like where AI can make a difference is like more behavioral analysis. So like it can look at the user behavior, like how the user usually spends, where the user shops, or like I think it is already happening for us, right? Like when you do some unusual transaction or like unusual amount of transaction, like let's say if you do like a bigger amount, like $1,500 or $2,000, it doesn't always the payment doesn't always go through. Sometimes you get a trigger saying that, hey, did you make this payment? So this is already happening. But to make it more better and much better on this behavioral analysis, AI can do a lot more better. And also the fraud detection. So fraud detection instead of the regular rule engines that we usually used to have for fraud detection, like where something happened, you put that into the rules and you try to check against the rules and see if that rule satisfies, then you say that it is a fraud. So that's like an existing system. It works, but it's just that as we are evolving, AI can make it better. So it's more about like whereas like it learns on its own behavior. Like if something happens, it relearns, and it also it's more about like if another attack comes in, it knows what to do. Definitely, you don't need to worry about this all these kind of rule engines and kind of things. And also that is where like deep learning and all this like pattern recognition kind of things can come into picture as well when you involve more deep learning or like some kind of payment patterns or like some kind of anomaly patterns. It depends on different things. It can be like they're called like fraud rings, I would say, and also like synthetic frauds that happens, and also like account takeovers too. Sometimes your account completely gets taken by someone else. So these kind of things can also be detected, and we can put a like a hold if something happens, that a step should be there that nothing can happen after that. It completely locks your account so that no one can do anything unless you call or talk to the service, customer service, and do something. And most important thing is like AI is more about like adaptive learning. So it tries to, as I said, like continuously learn on what it does in the past, and it keeps learning, and that is how it tunes it well, so that it is more, I would say, like secure.
Thank you for that. Sure. As we kind of segue into the last part of the podcast, of course, and we wanted to end it off kind of with asking you what skills you think are most valuable for students entering the fintech space. So we have a lot of students that are in computer science, computer information systems. We have finance, and we even have students that are majoring in marketing, but just want to explore this niche of fintech and explore just some opportunities because it's such a growing industry, and we know that like a percent of all payments go through the Atlanta space at your hub, some skills that you've gained and that you think would be valuable for our students to have.
One thing I would suggest is like what I have learned over the years is don't just learn a tool, like you have to learn how to solve the problems with technology. So like that makes you valuable in fintech. Because that is a problem even we are seeing, like though I have like around like 13 or 14 years of experience now learning AI or like ML, at this point all of a sudden it's getting difficult too. Like because it's not always that 100%. Even like most of the tech that I work in, I'm never 100% familiar with most of the things that with the tech that I use. So you should not always think about like specific programming language or like specific tool that you're wanted to work on. Think about what is the problem again. Think what are the different things that can solve this problem. That is the first thing you have to do, as like as any student should do. And more about like coming to fintech. First thing is to understand the financial fundamental. So, fintech is not just about credit card payments or like inserting a card into a device and the payment goes through, or like just making bank-to-back transfers. So there's a lot more inside fintech. So it can be wealth management or digital assets or how you plan your finances. Like either it can be K or IRA. There are several things that I think students must all know about this. They should understand that fintech is not just one side of it. There are a lot more opportunities inside fintech that they can only if you understand how it works, then you can see what are the problems or what are the things that are lacking with the existing systems. And then you can come up with more like newer things that you can try to solve and bring up like a new startups. That is where the most of the startups come in. They try to analyze the things and then they see like what is the thing that is lacking. They bring that up and they try to make it as a startup most of the time. That is how it works. And coming to the learning, so it's I think I'm not sure even if I have to say this, but as students, you people always keep learning some or the other thing every day. So the learning should always happen. So it's not that even for me, like the learning happens every day because like when I work on a technology, if a new version comes in, I have to get the new version and I have to understand what is the new version giving me and how it is useful in my application. So I have to keep learning day to day. That is also one thing that is really important. And another thing to also understand how things work from other people, networking. Networking is something I really like. I usually try to tell everyone that you have to do a lot of networking. It can be through anything. It can be through your university, or it can be through your professors, or it can be through the industry leaders, or it can be through just like any like an engineer even who has a 1 year of experience. You can still network with them to understand, hey, how have you learned or how have you got into this, or like what are the some things. So they can give you like, a lot of insights. So there's several things. For example, I'll say one thing. Though I've like been working in the industry for a while, I still do a lot of networking. I try to go to like there's IEEE. I'm part of IEEE. I'm a senior member for IEEE. So I go to IEEE, meet people, and I learn a lot more things from them. It need not be fintech, but always try to understand how to get into a problem and see how it can be solved. So this way it helps in different ways.
I appreciate that answer. Definitely understanding the industry and the willingness to learn are definitely some things to take away as well as networking. As we close it up, just wanted to ask you actually another last question, a key takeaway you wanted students to remember, and then also where we can all connect with you.
Keep learning, be curious, and also be adaptable. So things are changing. Since AI came in, things are very fast because if you sleep today and by the time you wake up tomorrow, there are a lot more tools that are coming in. Make sure that you are staying up to date, focus on fundamentals, so that if you know the fundamentals, then you know how that, like I would say, like that tool or like that application is trying to solve that problem. Only then you get to know like what exactly you need to do.
Thank you so much.
And I can be reached on LinkedIn, definitely on my profile. And if there is something that people can or like want to talk to me regarding anything, it need not be fintech, it can be anything. So I'm open to talk. Connect with me on LinkedIn, so it would be easy to stay connected.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to include your LinkedIn profile link in the show notes in the description for this podcast. So, students, if you're out there and listening, or even industry professionals looking to upskill and to network, leverage these relationships. As Nikhil mentioned, it's extremely impactful for your career progression.
Thank you for that. And Miss Laura, to just answer your question as well, to any students watching this podcast, I can definitely say firsthand experience, Nikhil is very friendly. He actually messaged me first after I connected with him on LinkedIn before he even knew we were doing this podcast. So definitely take him up on his offer and reach out to him. He's definitely an expert in this field. And then just also outside of that, as us as students who are prepping for full-time jobs and internships, to just kind of go off his point of networking, network strategically and apply boldly when you're looking for these new positions, and just continue to be active in your student community, whether that is in the Georgia FinTech Academy or outside of that as well.
As Christian summarized, we've learned a lot. Hill, thank you for the points that you've added, not around just your background and your interest and what's driven you to pursue a successful career in fintech, but then also some of the things to be mindful of as AI continues to evolve and the use cases continue to grow. Christian, thank you as well for being here. It's a pleasure. We're going to get you on another podcast in the near future. We have a lot more content coming out, so follow us on LinkedIn, of course, YouTube. This podcast is on every single platform. We continue to look forward to providing the most cutting edge content to help aid our students in navigating fintech careers. Thank you for joining.